majority leader. Hmm? Si Grace po nandito na. Ah, si Grace. Oh. Wow, suspended na. The 49th session of the Senate in this third regular session of the 16th Congress is hereby called to order. With the permission of the Chamber, the Chair declares a 1-minute suspension to await for Senator Poe coming to the hall as he will deliver our prayer for this afternoon. 1-minute suspension. Session is resumed. The chamber will be led in prayer by Senator Grace Poe. Senator Poe.
Sa ngalan ng Ama, ng Anak, ng Espiritu Santo. Amen. Panginoon, Ikaw ang aming pastol. Ikaw ang aking lakas at pahingahan. Ikaw magpakailanman ang aming tanggulan. Panginoon, sa pamamagitan ng inyong tungkod, hawiin mo ang mga balakid sa aming landas. Hampasin mo ang mga hindi nararapat na lumapit sa amin na hindi namin maganap ang aming trabaho. Payapain mo ang aming dibdib sa oras ng pagkabalisa. Hagurin mo kami kapag nabubugbog sa alipusta. Bigyan mo kami ng kapayapaan sa katiyakan na dahil Ikaw, Panginoon, ang aming pastol, wala kaming dapat ipangamba kailanman. Ibunyag mo ang tunay na kulay ng aming mga nagagawa at dapat ay hinihingi namin ang inyong patuloy na inspirasyon na magawa namin ang nararapat para sa aming kapwa. Amen. Sa ngalan ng Ama, ng Anak, ng Espiritu Santo. Amen.
With the permission of the chamber, the chair declares a 1-minute suspension. Session is resumed. The Secretary will call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan, Peter, Compañeros, Cayetano Pia S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar. Senate President Rilon.
13 senators are present. The chair declares the presence of a quorum. Senator Sani Angara is recognized as the acting majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 48th session, Tuesday, January 19, 2016, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Hearing none, the journal of session number 48, September 19, 2016, is hereby dispensed with, and the same is hereby approved.
Mr. President, before we proceed with the reference of business, may we acknowledge some of the guests in our gallery. We have with us today officials of the NBI, headed by Director Virgilio Mendez. We also have participants of the St. Thomas More debate series. They are students from Ateneo, UST, San Beda, Adamson, De La Salle University, headed by officers of the St. Thomas More Advocacy and Debate Society. We also have with us students from the Learning Tree Child Growth Center, headed by teachers Vivian, Gracel, and Josh. I move that they be recognized, Mr. President.
The Director of the National Bureau of Investigation, Director Mendez, is recognized, and his presence is made of record. Likewise, the student debaters from Ateneo de Manila, University of Santo Tomas, San Beda, Alabang, and Mendiola, Adamson University, De La Salle University are recognized, and the presence is made of record. Likewise, the students of the Learning Tree Child Growth Centers, led by Teacher Vivian, Teacher Grace, and Teacher Josh, welcome to the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Secretary will read the reference of business.
Resolutions, PSR number 1705, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation. The report that the Commission Audit has ordered the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation to refund to its members 325 million in unclaimed benefits by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Health and Demography.
PSR number 1706, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation. The report that presidential candidates spent a total of 2.3 billion for television advertisements from January to December 2015, thereby exceeding the limit for campaign expenses even before the start of the campaign period. Senator Defensor Santiago.
Electoral Reforms, People's Participation.
PSR number 1707, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the report that the 1 billion pesos allocation for reproductive health services was stricken off the 2016 budget by the Senator Defensor Santiago.
Health and Demography, Finance.
PSR number 1708, expressing the sense of the Senate that a multi-agency task force must be created to monitor the status of overseas Filipino workers in order to prevent abuse by employers. Senator Defensor Santiago.
Rules.
PSR number 1709, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the COA report that the Bureau of Treasury failed to collect 6.9 billion in idle funds 2014. Senator Defensor Santiago.
Committee on Finance.
PSR number 1710, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the COA report questioning procurement transactions made by the AFP for a total of 24.9 billion pesos. Senator Defensor Santiago.
National Defense and Security.
PSR number 1711, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the Commission on Audit report on the delayed release of cash aid for human rights victims. Senator Defensor Santiago.
Justice and Human Rights.
PSR number 1712, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry of legislation on the report that the Philippines is fourth among countries most vulnerable to natural disasters. Senator Defensor Santiago.
National Defense and Security.
PSR number 1713, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on reported prostitution dens for minors and out-of-school youth in Manila. Senator Defensor Santiago.
Local Government, Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality.
PSR number 1714, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation and report that the Caloocan City government has failed to approve a mandatory solid waste management plan. Senator Defensor Santiago.
Local Government, Environment, and Natural Resources.
PSR number 1715, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the reported increase in the number of motorcycle accidents, Senator Defensor Santiago.
Public Services.
PSR number 1716, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the report that more Filipinos aged 15 to 24 are contracting the human immunodeficiency virus, Senator Defensor Santiago.
Health and Demography.
PSR number 1717, resolution honoring and commending the contributions of Mr. Ramon Moreno to the Philippine entertainment industry by Senators Hersh Estrada and Ramon Bong Revilla Jr.
Rules.
PSR number 1718, congratulating and commending Margarita Gaita Araneta Forest for being named Asia's Best Female Chef for 2016, hailed by Asia's 50 Best Restaurant Awards by Senator Lapid.
Rules.
PSR number 1719, resolution expressing the profound sympathy and sincere condolence of the Senate on the death of Democrito Mendoza, founder of the Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, TUCP, by Senator Drilon.
Rules.
PSR number 1720, congratulating and commending Liviana G. Navarro for being a 5-time gold medalist and for bagging 5 plaques and 4 other medals in the 19th World Championship of Performing Arts WCOPA held last July 13 to 17, 2015 at Long Beach, California, USA by Senator Trillanes Lefort.
Rules. The Majority Leader.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill 2767 under Committee Report 291. This bill pertains to the proposed bill to increase the bed capacity of the Vicente Soto Medical Center, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measure is that the sponsor, Senator Gingona, delivered the sponsorship speech last December 15, 2015. I move that we open the period of interpellations.
The period of interpellation is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Gingona.
Senator Gingona is recognized.
Mr. President, none of our colleagues has signified an intention to interpellate. In view of this, I move that we close the period of interpellations.
Period for interpellation is terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period of committee amendments.
Committee amendments is in order.
There are none. According to the author, he's signaling. Mr. President, I thus move that we close the period of committee amendments.
Committee amendments is terminated.
I move that we open the period of individual amendments, Mr. President.
Individual amendments are in order.
Likewise, Senator Gingona is signaling that there are no individual amendments. I thus move that we close the period of individual amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none, the period for individual amendments is terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading Senate Bill number 2767 under Committee Report 291. So
Any objection? Any objection? Hearing none. Senate Bill number 2767 under Committee Report 291, which increases the bed capacity of Vicente Soto Medical Center, is hereby approved on third reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill 2767.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill 5307 under Committee Report 290. This bill pertains to the proposed National Thyroid Cancer Awareness Week.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measure is that the sponsor delivered the sponsorship speech last December 15, 2015. I thus move that we open the period of interpellations.
Period for interpellation is in order.
I move that we recognize the sponsor. Once more, it is Senator Gingona, Mr. President.
Senator Gingona is recognized.
None of our colleagues have signified an intention to interpellate on the bill. Mr. President, I move that we close the period of interpellations.
So terminated.
Mr. President, move that we open the period of committee amendments.
Period for committee amendments is in order.
There are none. Mr. President, I move that we close the period of committee amendments.
The chair, the sponsor, has manifested there are no committee amendments. That being the case, period for committee amendments is terminated.
Mr. President, I believe there are no individual amendments as well, according to Senator Gingona. I thus move that we close the period for individual amendments.
The period for individual amendments is terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill 5307 under Committee Report 290. So moved.
Any objection? Hearing none, approve on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend House Bill 5307.
Suspended.
I move to suspend for 1 minute, Mr. President.
1 minute suspension.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill 2178 under Committee Report 336. This bill pertains to the proposed Election Service Reform Act, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measures that the sponsor delivered the sponsorship speech last December 16, 2015. I move that we open the period of interpellations.
Period for interpellation is in order.
I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Aquilino Pimentel III. It's also his birthday today, Mr. President.
Before we recognize Senator Pimentel, the Chair and the Chamber wishes to greet Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel a very happy birthday.
Thank you very much, Mr. President,
And
to all
maybe
of
we
my
suspend
colleagues.
for 1 minute to greet Coco.
Saan ang bili siya?
2178.
Hindi nga, sa dito yung kopya. Hindi, ito tuloy-tuloy na natin. Let's go dito.
Ito lang po.
Hindi, committee amendments. Meron?
Meron po.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed. The Chair now recognizes Senator Coco Pimentel, the principal sponsor of Senate Bill 2178 under Committee Report 336. Senator Coco.
We are ready, Mr. President, but I think no senator
Seems
has...
no senator will interpellate, Mr. President. We can close the period of interpellations. Thus move to close the period.
The majority leader has manifested that none of our colleagues would wish to avail of the period of interpellation.
Ito, sundin ko lang. May committee
There
na
being none, the period for interpellation on Senate Bill 2178 is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period of committee amendments.
Period for committee amendments is in order.
I believe there are some that the chairman or the sponsor wishes to propound. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator Pimentel is recognized on the period of committee amendments.
We have quite a number of committee amendments, Mr. President.
Please proceed, Senator Coco.
On the first page of the bill, line 1,
On page 1,
yes, first page, yes, line 1, after the phrase Election Service Reform Act, delete the phrase of 2014. I so move, Mr. President.
any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On the first page of the bill, line 3, after the phrase in this act, delete the punctuation mark, comma, and the phrase the following terms shall mean. I so
Any
move, Mr.
objection?
President.
Hearing none, approved.
On the first page of the bill, line 10, after the acronym parenthesis, open parenthesis, SBET, close parenthesis, insert the phrase hereinafter collectively referred to as quotation marks electoral boards. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On the same page and line, after the conjunction or, delete the acronym DepEd and replace it with the phrase Department of Education. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On the same page and line, after the phrase and there, insert the word respective. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On page 1, line 13, after the phrase election-related risk, delete the word refers, and in lieu thereof, insert the phrase shall refer.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On page 1 of the bill, line 16, after the phrase persons rendering election service, delete the word refers, and in lieu thereof, insert the phrase shall refer.
Approved.
On page 1 of the bill, line 17, after the phrase member of the, delete the acronyms BEI, SBEI, BET, SBET, and in lieu thereof, replace this with the phrase electoral boards. I so move, Mr. President.
Approved.
On the first page of the bill, line 18, after the phrase and there, insert the word respective. So move, Mr. President.
Approved.
On page 1 of the bill, line 21, after the phrase or to there, delete the word qualified.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On the second page of the bill, line 1, after the article the, delete the acronyms BEI, SBEI, BET, SBET, and in lieu thereof, insert the phrase electoral boards.
Approved.
On page 2, line 2, after the word commission, delete the phrase pursuant to the Omnibus Election Code and related laws. I so move, Mr. President.
Approved.
On the second page of the bill, line 3, after the phrase composed of A, capitalize the small letter C on the word chairperson.
Approved.
On page 2 of the bill, line 4, after the word service, delete the punctuation mark colon and the phrase provided, comma, that they are registered voters. I so move, Mr. President.
Approved.
On page 2 of the bill, line 6, after the phrase should there be, delete the phrase not enough and replace it with the phrase a lack of public school. I so move, Mr. President.
Approved.
On page 2 of the bill, line 7, after the phrase commission may, delete the phrase appoint any registered voter of the city or municipality who are of known probity and competence, provided that the chairperson shall be a public school teacher. The appointment of the other qualified citizens shall follow the order of preference herein provided. That is the phrase to be deleted, and replace it with the phrase instead appoint the following persons in this order of preference. I so move, Mr. President.
Approved.
On page 2 of the bill, line 14, after the phrase excluding uniformed personnel of the, delete the phrase Armed Forces of the Philippines, AFP, and the Philippine National Police, PNP, provided that in cases where the peace and order situation so requires, as determined by the Commission, uniformed personnel of the PNP may be deputized to render election service as a last resort, and replace it with the phrase, Department of National Defense and all its attached agencies. I so move, Mr. President. On page 2 of the bills, line 19, after the phrase Commission accredited, delete the phrase Citizens Arms and in lieu thereof, insert the phrase Citizen Arms or. I so move, Mr. President. On page 2 of the bill, line 22, delete the phrase any citizen of known probity and competence who is not involved, and replace it with the phrase any registered voter of the city or municipality of known integrity and competence who is not connected. I so move, Mr. President. On page 2 of the bill, lines 24 to 27, delete the entire paragraph, and in lieu thereof, replace it with a new paragraph to read as follows. In cases where the peace and order situation so requires, as determined by the Commission, and where there are no qualified voters willing to serve, uniformed personnel of the Philippine National Police shall be deputized to render election service as a last resort. I so move, Mr. President. On the second page of the bill, lines 28 to 31, delete the entire section 4.
Approved.
On page 2 of the bill, line 32, renumber section 5 to section 4.
Approved.
On page 2, lines 35 to 40, delete the entire second paragraph, and in lieu thereof, insert the following new paragraphs to read as follows. For the first implementation of this act, the following shall be entitled to the corresponding honoraria. Chairperson of electoral boards, 6,000 pesos. Members of electoral boards, 5,000 pesos. DESO, DESO, 4,000 pesos. Support staff, 2,000 pesos. All of the foregoing shall be entitled to an additional travel allowance of 1,000 pesos each. Such honoraria and allowances shall be paid within 15 days from the date of election. I so move, Mr. President.
Approved.
On page 2 of the bill, line 42, after the phrase 3 years, delete the phrase thereafter but in no case shall, and in lieu thereof, insert the phrase from the effectivity of this act but in no case shall the revised amounts. I so move, Mr. President.
Approved.
Page 3 of the bill, line 1, renumber section 6 to section 5.
Approved.
Page 3, line 2, after the phrase members of the, delete the acronym BEI and replace it with the phrase electoral boards and DESO and their respective support staff.
Approved.
Page 3 of the bill, line 3, renumber section 7 to section 6. Page 3 of the bill, line 6, after the phrase the amount of, capitalize the letters on the phrase 500,000 pesos.
Approved.
Page 3 of the bill, line 7, after the article the, delete the phrase qualified beneficiaries and replace it with the phrase beneficiaries in accordance with the implementing rules and regulations of this act.
Approved.
Page 3 of the bill, line 8, after the phrase in no case shall, insert the phrase the revised amount.
Approved.
Page 3 of the bill, line 12, renumber section 8 to section 7.
Approved.
Page 3, line 14, after the phrase filed against them, insert the phrase in connection with their election service.
Approved.
Page 3, line 17, renumber section 9 to section 8.
Approved.
Page 3, line 25, after the phrase personal capacity or, delete the word in and replace it with the word on.
Approved.
Page 3 of the bill, line 27, renumber section 10 to section 9.
Approved.
Same page and line, after the article the, delete the word claimant and in lieu thereof, insert the word claimants.
Approved.
Page 3, line 31, after the phrase claimant is found, delete the phrase to be.
Approved.
Page 3, line 38, renumber section 11 to section 10.
Approved.
Page 3, line 40, after the phrase shall be liable, delete the word of and in lieu thereof insert the word for.
Approved.
Page 3, line 42, renumber section 12 to section 11.
Approved.
Page 4, line 1, after the article the, delete the phrase funds allocated to the commission and in lieu thereof insert the phrase trust fund.
Approved.
Page 4, line 3, renumber section 13 to section 12.
Approved.
Page 4, line 7, renumber section 14 to section 13.
Approved.
Page 4, line 8, after the phrase assistance of, delete the phrase the Department of Education and replace it with the acronym DepEd.
Approved.
Page 4, line 12, insert a new section 14 to read as follows. Section 14, transitory clause. Within 30 days after the effectivity of this act, the Commission shall determine if it still has material time to implement Section 3 hereof on the non-compulsory election service of public school teachers in the 2016 national and local elections. Otherwise, the same shall be implemented in subsequent elections. I so move, Mr. President.
Approved.
Page 4, line 12, delete the entire provision of Section 15 and replace it with a new provision to read as follows. Section 15, repealing clause. All laws, decrees, orders, and issuances or portions thereof which are inconsistent with the provisions of this act are hereby repealed, amended, or modified accordingly. So move, Mr. President.
Approved.
Page 4, line 15, delete the entire provision of Section 16 and replace it with a new provision to read as follows. Section 16, separability clause. Should any provision of this act or part hereof be declared unconstitutional, the other provisions or parts not affected thereby shall remain valid and effective.
Approved.
Page 4, line 18, after the phrase shall take effect, delete the phrase 15 days following and replace it with the phrase immediately after.
Approved.
Page 4, line 19, after the phrase publication in, delete the phrase at least.
Approved.
And the title of the bill is to be amended to read as follows. An act rendering election service non-compulsory for public school teachers, comma, authorizing the appointment of other qualified citizens, comma, providing for compensation and other benefits. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
That would be all
Majority-
for committee amendments, Mr. President.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Isa. One.
Mr. President, I move that we close the period of committee amendments.
Committee amendments terminated.
I move that we open the period, Mr. President, for individual amendments.
The period for individual amendments on Senate Bill 2178 is in order.
Section 13.
Mr. President, I believe Senator Pimentel
This is a new section.
would also has some individual amendments.
Senator Pimentel is recognized once more to propose certain
Yes,
amendments
just
to the
one,
members of the chamber.
Just one amendment, Mr. President. Section 13 ito, the Section 13 na? Okay. On Section 13, as renumbered by the committee amendments. Now, we have now a Section 13 on implementing rules and regulations. I move that we delete the word promulgation and replace it with the word effectivity. So that Section 13 will now read as follows. Section 13, implementing rules and regulations. Within 90 days from the effectivity of this act, comma, the Commission, with the assistance of DepEd, Office of the Solicitor General, Department of Justice, National Teachers Organizations, Election Monitoring Organizations, and such other civil society organizations as may be determined by the Commission, shall formulate the implementing rules and regulations of this act. So move, Mr. President.
What is the amendment, Senator Pimentel?
The word in Section 13 as it is now, as it now stands, is promulgation. So it's within 90 days from the promulgation of this act. The amendment is that we make it within 90 days from the effectivity of this act.
90 days. All right. Any objection? Hearing none. Approved.
Just a manifestation, Your Honor, that the amounts in the bill mentioned as the honoraria of those serving in the electoral boards we intend them to be effective this coming 2016. That is the intent of the bill. The amounts of the honoraria, Mr. President. Just for the record. So that would be all, Mr. President.
So noted, yes.
Mr. President, there are no other members who wish to propose individual amendments. I move that we close the period for individual amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none, the period for individual amendments on Senate Bill 2178 is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading Senate Bill 2178 under Committee Report 336.
Any objection? The chair hears none. Senate Bill 2178 under Committee Report number 336 is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill 2178.
Such consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, just a 1-minute suspension, please.
The 1 minute suspension.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill 866 under Committee Report number 85. This is the bill on the role of the AFP during elections.
Any objection? Consideration of Senate Bill 886 under Committee Report 85 is in order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measure is that the period of interpellations thereon has been terminated. I move that we open the period of committee amendments.
Period for committee amendments is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Coco Pimentel.
Senator Pimentel is recognized.
For committee amendments, Mr. President, I move that on page 1, second line of section 1, we delete the article A after the word maintain. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection?
And on page 2, second line of section 5, after the word provisions, delete the word is and in lieu thereof insert the verb are.
Any objection? Here none approved. Any other committee
That would
amendments?
be all for the committee amendments, Mr. President.
There being no further committee amendments, the period for committee amendments is hereby terminated. Is there any individual amendments?
There
on
are,
this
Mr. President, may I be recognized for individual amendments?
Senator Pimentel is recognized for individual amendments.
As these amendments are the result of the interpellation by Senator Tito Soto last August 26, 2015.
Please proceed.
On page 1, line 8, paano ba line 8 ito? Saan ito? Where's the line? Delete the letter S on the word elections. I so move, Mr. President.
Approved.
Ano mangyayari dito? Ito, babasahin ko ito. On the same page and line, insert the phrase period, comma, which shall commence 90 days before the day of the election and shall end 30 days thereafter. So that I'm sorry, Mr. President, that's one amendment because we are actually clarifying election period, Mr. President.
So you are referring to section 2 of the section 2, this line 6 to line starting line 6 of the measure on page 1.
Can you point it out?
Can we clarify? Because
Yes, sir.
the chair cannot follow the amendments.
Kasi may line kayo wala eh. Can we have a suspension, Mr. President?
1 minute suspension.
Ulit. Saan dito? On page 190. Hindi. Ang idea dito, election period dito, di ba? Saan dito para maklaro? Ayun, ito. Oo, during the. Bakit walang the? Shall only be deputies and MPs during the. Oh, ito ano to?
Saan ba ito? Ito ba? Ito bang pipili na ba?
Ano to? And then renumber accordingly. Okay. So we are ready to
Session is
to
resumed.
resume, Mr. President. Okay.
Please proceed.
I will withdraw my earlier manifestation or motion, Mr. President, so that we will amend Section 2 of the bill by replacing the word elections after the word during with the
Yes.
following phrase: the election period, comma, which shall commence 90 days before the day of the election and shall end 30 days thereafter, comma. I so move, Mr. President.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
And I move that we insert a new section to read as follows.
Where do we insert it?
Section 3, a new Section 3, Mr. President.
Before line 22. All right. Before section 3. Please proceed.
Section 3, penalties. Any person found guilty of violating this act shall be punished with imprisonment of not less than 1 year, but not more than 6 years, and shall not be subject to probation. In addition, comma, the guilty party shall be sentenced to suffer disqualification to hold public office and deprivation of the right of suffrage, period. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? None approved.
And then I move that we renumber the following sections accordingly, Mr. President.
The subsequent
Yes,
sections,
the
starting with the original section 3, is up to the original section 6, is hereby renumbered.
That would be all, Mr. President.
Majority Leader,
Mr. President, there are no other members who wish to propose individual amendments. I move that we close the period of individual amendments.
so closed.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading Senate Bill number 866 under Committee Report number 885.
Any objection? Hearing none. Senate Bill number 886 under Committee Report number 85 is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill 866.
So suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2950 under Committee Report number 249. This is the bill on the NBI modernization.
Any objection? Hearing none. Consideration of the measure is in order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measure is that the period of interpellations has been terminated. I move that we open the period for committee amendments.
Period for committee amendments is in order.
I move that we recognize the sponsor once again, Senator Pimentel.
Senator Pimentel is recognized.
May we ask for a minute suspension, Mr. President?
1 minute suspension.
Committee amendments pa naman. Ano bang sabi mo? Wala sa kanyang report. Ito wala na to, ano to. Ito na yung bill natin. So, muna po on page 4. Delete the title and the introductory sentence. Ito. And change to jurisdiction. The NBI shall have primarily undertake investigations in the following cases. Line on page 6, line 26. Delete the phrase for similar bodies. And line on page 7. Lines 5 to 7. Adjust the paragraph letters accordingly. Ano sabihin ko?
Kasi i-delete yung
Delete. Okay. Delete. Sorry.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
May we once again recognize the sponsor, Senator Pimentel, for the amendments, Mr. President.
Senator Pimentel is recognized.
Okay, Mr. President, this is a substitute bill, so can we now proceed to the period for individual amendments?
So moved, Mr. President.
Okay. The sponsor may proceed to the period for individual amendments.
On page 4, section 4A, which is on powers and functions.
Section 4, yes.
Yes, sir.
This is on page 4.
Yes, Mr. President.
Please proceed.
I move that we delete the entire paragraph A and replace it with the following paragraph A. Paragraph A, undertake investigation and detection of crimes and offenses enumerated under section 5 hereof, semicolon. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? The amendment will delete section 4A, starting with from line 12 on page 4 up to line 15, and substitute the same with the provision undertake investigation and detection of crimes and offenses enumerated under section 5 hereof. Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
On page 6, section 5 on priority cases, line 18, delete the title and the introductory sentence and change.
Can you read to the record what is being deleted?
We delete the following words, section 5, priority cases. The following shall be the priority cases.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
And in lieu thereof, change this or insert the following words, section 5, jurisdiction. The NBI shall have primary jurisdiction to undertake investigations in the following cases, colon. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Page 6, line 26, delete the phrase or similar bodies. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
Pinapatanggal mo to. Okay. Page 7, lines 5 to 7, delete the paragraph, delete the subparagraph H and replace it with a new subparagraph H to read as follows: transnational crimes pursuant to existing international agreements, semicolon.
Can we have the amendment again, Senator Pimentel? On page 7, we're now on page 7.
On page 7,
The first amendment is to delete lines 5 to 7.
that the 5 to 7, lines 5 to 7 refer to subparagraph H, Mr. President.
That's correct. So that's deleted.
Yes, sir.
All right,
But
let's take it up
Yes.
one by one. Okay?
we delete, Mr. President. I so move, Mr. President.
All right. So any objection? Hearing none. Lines 5 to 7 on page 7, which is paragraph H of section 5, is hereby deleted. Next amendment.
Next amendment is that on the same section 5 on priority cases, we insert a new subparagraph H to read as follows: H, transnational crimes pursuant to existing international agreements.
Transnational crimes.
I so move, Mr. President. So hindi ko na ito tatanggalin.
Any objection? None, approved.
Wala nang adjustment, right? Okay. And then on page 7, on line 21, insert another paragraph to read as follows. This paragraph is in effect after subparagraph J, Mr. President.
Please proceed.
A new paragraph to read as follows: provided, however, that the President or the Secretary of Justice may direct the NBI to undertake the investigation of any crime when public interest so requires. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, approved.
That would be all, Mr. President, for individual amendments.
Majority Leader.
President, I move that there are no other members who wish to propose individual amendments. I move that we close the period for individual amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none, period for individual amendments is terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading Senate Bill 2950 under Committee Report 249.
Any objection? Hearing none. Senate Bill 2950 under Committee Report 249 is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of the measure.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill 2582 under Committee Report number 96. This bill pertains to the proposed nutrition and dietetics law.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of Senate Bill 2582 under Committee Report 96 is in order.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measure is that we are in the period of interpellations. I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Trillanes.
Senator Trillanes is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Mr. President, there are no members who have signified their intent to interpellate. I move that we close the period of interpellations.
Any objections? Hearing none, the period for interpellation on Senate Bill 2582 under Committee Report number 96 is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we open the period of committee amendments.
The period for committee amendments is in order. Senator Trillanes, are there any committee amendments?
Mr. President, considering that this is a substitute bill, we have no committee amendments.
All right.
Move to close, Mr. President.
So terminated.
Move to open the period of individual amendments, Mr.
Period
President.
for individual amendments is in order. Senator Trillanes.
Mr. President, for the information of the body, Senator Cayetano submitted to the committee her proposed individual amendment, which comes in the form of an amendment by substitution. Now, copies of the proposed amendment were likewise distributed last 13 January 2016 to all the senators, thus complying with Section 82, Rule 29 of the Rules of the Senate, which provides that no amendment by substitution shall be entertained unless the text thereof is admitted in writing. In view thereof, Senator Cayetano moves to strike all texts under the enacting clause thereof.
I'm sorry? Senator Cayetano, I'm sorry?
Moved to strike all text under the enacting clause thereof and insert the full text of the proposed amendment by substitution under the same enacting clause of the measure. And this sponsor has accepted the individual amendment of Senator Pia Cayetano, Mr. President.
This is an amendment by substitution.
Yes, Mr. President.
Can we have a 1 minute suspension? The chair will Senator Enrile is recognized.
Nutrition and dietetics.
Mr. President, may we hear the explanation for the substitute amendment? What's
All right.
the difference between the original text and the new inserted amendment?
All right. Senator Trillanes may respond.
Mr. President, for the information of the minority leader, the proposed amendments of Senator Pia Cayetano was substantial, and it basically altered the order of the bill, the original bill, or the committee report. Thus, she proposed to amend by substitution, which is allowed by the rules, Mr. President. So we have reconciled the two versions and came up with this.
What we want to know, Mr. President, is what's the difference between the original text and the text after if we approve the substitution? Why is there a need to do a substitution? This is a very delicate procedure in enacting legislation. We are aware of the original text, but we do not know now the metes and bounds of the substitution being made. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, this sponsor understands the concern of the minority leader, which was precisely why Senator Cayetano endeavored to submit a copy of her proposed amendment to the individual senators, and it was properly received last 13 January 2016. But just to cite some of those differences, Mr. President. Ito ba yung mga naka-pencil? In the original committee report, in line 15, Senator Pia Cayetano inserted a subparagraph A, which is the standardization and regulation of nutrition and dietetics education. So that's one. Then she inserted a subparagraph C. She moved to delete subparagraph B, and therefore the succeeding subparagraphs were reordered, Mr. President. But based on our coordination with Senator Pia Cayetano, some of her amendments were not substantial, but more more rephrasing of some of the provisions which she believed may be misconstrued later on.
Before the chair recognizes Senator Enrile, may the chair request the sponsor to submit for the record the bill, the substitute bill, as the same is not yet filed in the office of the Secretariat. And after we receive this, we will distribute the same to all the members of the chamber so that it is part of our official record.
The sponsor submits, Mr. President. But before that, may I move to suspend session?
Before we move to suspend, so that the amendments are part of the record. This bill, the substitute bill, should be submitted, and we will read it into the record, and we will act on it. 1 minute suspension as requested by the sponsor. Dapat isubmit, so we will reflect it in the record, and then that is now the basis for, and then it will now be presented. Right? Please substitute it. No, but because they could also stand up, Pia Cayetano to it, because they can stand up and propose amendments one by one. That is the factor. That's right. That is why I'm asking them to submit it to the Secretary, so that we can record the substitute bill. Di ba? The session is resumed. Okay. The substitute bill will now be distributed for reference to all the members of the chamber. And the substitute bill will be submitted to the Secretariat and will be considered as read into the records in today's session. And on the next session, we shall debate on the bill and approve the amendments proposed by substitution, one by one. Okay? So that's the ruling of the chair in order to have an orderly debate on this measure. And when we calendar it once more, the sponsor can respond to the questions of the minority leader on the differences between what the original bill, which was a substitute bill, what the original bill was, and the bill that is now read into the record as the substitute bill. Okay?
The sponsor submits to the wisdom of the President.
All right. Now, so with that, we shall now suspend consideration of the measure, and the same will be on the floor again at the next session. Because the bill should be really reflected in the Session is suspended. Huh? Session is resumed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Parliamentary status is that we are still in the period of interpellations for Senate Bill 2582, the Nutrition and Dietetics Law, and in view of the sentiment expressed by some of our members to know more about the bill, may we suspend consideration in the meantime of the measure, Mr. President?
Yes. The members of the chamber would like to review and study the proposed amendments of Senator Pia Cayetano, which will affect the entire measure. So under those premises, the consideration of the measure is suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Monday, January 25, 2016.
Session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Monday, January 25. Ano,